Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bxb'S Bits and Bobs, episode 42, titled Romancing the Stone. Because it's just me and Joel today in a romantic evening podcast. Because Richard, I believe, if not quite yet, will soon be in Germany. He's defecting. He's leaving us for a video game site called Das Games Emporium. .German. I don't know what their URL is. Do you know what the URL?
.de. So
DE.
.Deutsche, I think, is .de.
I thought .German would be better, but horrible probably at the same time. But there you go. So he's gone off to do that. He's been practicing his fake German accent for weeks now on me. I feel like he might be back in a couple of weeks' time because they might fire him for being horribly racist. What do you think, Joel? I think that's quite possible.
Well, that's if we'll take him back, right?
He'll have to beg.
After this betrayal that he's put on us this time round.
Yeah, exactly.
Will we welcome him back with open arms? I don't know.
Well, because normally we've been doing these anti Christianity podcasts recently, haven't we? Where we've been recording
taking on the church on a Sunday AM, haven't we?
Yeah. So Saturday evening, it's like old school. We've not done one of these in a little while. Me and Joel are both half asleep, I think, and on the coffee and trying to find some energy to get through this. But we couldn't put it off because there's been weirdly loads of games. I've played so much stuff in the last couple of weeks that we had to talk about. Otherwise, there'd be no way we would be able to do it all when Richard came back. So yeah, I mean, even then, there's stuff I'm not going to be able to have time to talk about. But you know, how have you been, Joel? Netflix catch-up corner, I believe, is what we do regularly now. So, watched anything good on Netflix?
No, I haven't watched anything on Netflix at all. But I have on Amazon Video. Is this allowed? Can we talk about Amazon Prime TV series on the Netflix section? I have been watching American Playboy, the Hugh Hefner story, which is a 10-part one series thing on Amazon Prime Video, and it's actually really quite interesting. It's quite intriguing. I've just Hugh Hefner, right? Before this, I was just literally, oh yeah, he's that guy in the mansion who just sleeps with all these women and stuff. But there's actually so much more to him and his past, and his background, and his love for journalism and culture and sort of civil rights and all this kind of stuff that I just never knew. So it's just been really intriguing learning more about him as and obviously he did build the Playboy empire and stuff, so it sort of builds follows chronologically how he did that and stuff. But yeah, it's fascinating. I've been sitting watching it with the wife, and even she's like, at first she was like, I'm not really really interested in this, am I? And I was like, well, let's watch one episode and just see what happens. And she was captured from the start as well as I was from the first episode. Have you seen it?
No, but it's the kind of thing I would definitely watch because I do find those kinds of stories about somewhat reclusive individuals. I mean, everybody knows him, like you said, for one thing predominantly, but I bet there's a lot more to that. So I could definitely see myself wanting to dive into that and find out, what made that man the man he was and stuff like that. He was very much a character, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Literally a character. Like he actually became a character.
He had to become the character, and this is part of. You'll see that he starts off as a very shy, sort of reclusive man, but then he realizes that as he's building Playboy, he has to become the Playboy character, and he has to play that. That's part of the brand, and stuff. And it does cover that, and it's very interesting. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. It's only 10 episodes. I'm up to episode 8 so far, so I've not seen actually where it goes up to and where it finishes timeline wise, but I'm enjoying it. So
yeah, I mean, I would check that out if I can find the time. I've watched a bunch of like Oscar movies, Oscar-winning movies, and were at the time in contention for the movie. So I finally got around to watching Get Out. Have you seen Get Out, Joel?
No, is it any good?
It's yes, but at the same time, overhyped. I don't want to get into it too much, but I actually found some of the stuff kind of on the nose, and there's some big, weird inconsistencies and plot holes in the end. But no, I don't want to spoil it for you. I think it's worth seeing. There's some amazing performances. It's a fantastic writing and directorial debut, obviously, for the director, whose name has left me completely, who just won the screenwriting Oscar from Key and Peele. I remember which one he is, though. I can never remember which of the two people he is. I always get that wrong. But no, it's fantastic in that part. And then I watched Darkest Hour, which is Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. which is just, yes, he won that Oscar, well deserved. He transforms himself into Winston Churchill physically, the way he speaks. You actually really forget that that's an actor, that it's Gary Oldman. Just a fantastic performance. And let's be honest, it's one of the greatest moments of modern, English history. So fantastic to see this man, doing the right thing and standing up to Hitler and, committing to that conflict the way he did when everybody was telling him to sue for peace and to throw in the towel and stuff like that. I just fantastic, and very much you feel his solitude in that piece. You feel that he was very much him against the world. Sure, it's based on a novel. It takes a novel that's based on historical facts, but there's probably some artistic license going on in there. But if you're into your World War II movies, what would be great as a double bill with Dunkirk. Like, watch Darkest Hour and then watch Dunkirk. That would be an amazing, lazy Sunday afternoon, if you're really in the mood for that sort of history stuff. Just fantastic performance. And then I've watched the much maligned, turns out, didn't realize everybody hated this because I really enjoyed it, Murder on the Orient Express, the Kenneth Branagh one. And that's been shat on, it turns out. I had no idea. People think it was the worst adaptation of that storyline. I really enjoyed it. I'd never seen Murder on the Orient Express in any form before. Obviously, I've seen Poirot over the years, many, many times, David Suchet. But yeah, I really enjoyed Kenneth Branagh's direction on this, and it's an amazing cast. And if you've never experienced that storyline, go for it. It's a great mystery. Really, really well done. And then finally, Star Wars Rebels. You're a Star Wars guy, aren't you, Joel?
But you're not
fan, Rebels.
I've never watched any of the Rebels series. I did watch a few of the Clone Wars ones, but yeah, it's all on Netflix, isn't it? No, or have they pulled it now?
Not sure.
I don't think all their content from Netflix now.
I don't think Rebels is or ever was, to be honest. I'm not sure, but it's. I was saying until we got Force Awakens and Rogue One, Rebels was the best Star Wars ever made in my mind. Like, it was fantastic. It's just fantastic. Like, and the finale, and the last sort of arc of storylines are touching, heart-wrenching, great action, some just amazingly good Star Wars, just fantastic Star Wars. And I obviously don't want to spoil it for you, but check out Rebels, Joel. You would really enjoy it. And you can sit down with your son and watch it as well, because it's not too like horrible or anything like that. The thing that's so cool about it is because it was 4 seasons of TV. When stuff happens to these characters, you really care. It's not characters that you get as like, there were some big sacrifices in Rogue One, right? And you feel them to a degree, but you've only known those characters for a couple of hours at that point. So when you've known the characters for years, it's very impactful what happens, and they don't shy away from the consequences of a tiny rebel force. This is set between 3 and 4, before Rogue One, and yeah, they don't shy away from the odds. And what is likely to happen in that situation. No, it's absolutely brilliant. The one thing I wanted to mention at the end here, though, because there's been a real resurgence I've noticed recently in stuff announced for and stuff that is coming out that is either directly adapting Lovecraft's work or heavily inspired by Lovecraft. So I decided finally, I'm 33 years old and I never read the Necronomicon. I'd never read any actual Lovecraft. I've obviously experienced loads of things inspired by it and homage to it, but I never gone to the original source. So I've gone on Audible and I've got the Necronomicon audiobook. So it's the whole thing, each story with a different narrator. And I've started listening to it, and I'm about a third of the way in. And it's really difficult because I don't know if you've ever read any yourself, Joel.
I've never read any H.P. Lovecraft, no. But obviously there's a lot of modern stuff. Cthulhu and everything is basically all derived from his work.
Yes, that's it. That's where it comes from. Yeah. And that was like, well, there's this new Call of Cthulhu video game that's coming up that's looking really interesting. And it's just showing up all over the place right now. The kind of the elder gods thing, the dark sort of mythos. And at times it's so engrossing. It pulls you in. He's got a great use of language. It's really, really engaging. He conveys this otherness, this horror in some of the stories very, very well. However, Now, I've read a lot of fiction from like the 50s and the 40s and the past, sci-fi. You know, there's a lot of that stuff. But this guy takes the biscuit for the most racist stuff I have possibly ever, in this case, heard, or, you know, if you're reading the book, read. Like, just unbelievable racism. Like the N word is used quite a bit. He actually named it in one story. The cat's name is the N word. That's really disturbing to me. It's just so casual. And then anybody that's not a white, you know, Anglo-Saxon male is basically subhuman, or a dirty native, or, you know, it's just constant, and it pulls you out of it, and it's quite uncomfortable at times. And you have to keep telling yourself this was written a long time ago.
Yeah, when was it written?
Different time period.
Was it like 1930s or 20s or something?
I believe it's 20s/30s. It's post World War One. It's in that period between World War One and Two. I'd have to look it up to get the exact date, but definitely post World War One, prior to Two, because they refer to the Great War. It's kind of a big part of a lot of it. But by blah blah, so much racism. It's hard to enjoy at times. Like, you're getting pulled into this. Oh God, is this horrible eldritch, demonic, unctuous, weird, darkness, and then N word. Oh, okay, cool. I'll just, yeah. I'm trying to listen to it because it's basically the Necronomicon is a collection of some are shorter than other, but it's short stories. Some of them were told across multiple parts because originally it was like a pulpy serial. That's how they this was published and stuff. So this is a collection of all those works. So I'm trying to listen to it like one part at a time. So not huge tracts of it, because it does get a bit repetitious, because he's obviously writing it for a very specific audience, and he's writing it with long gaps between them, you know, when the audience is actually going to read that stuff. So I wouldn't say necessarily recommend like mainlining it and marathoning it. But yeah, if you can look past that very era specific racism, I think it's pretty damn awesome. Like, and it's cool to like understand where all that stuff comes from. I'm enjoying it for that. But yeah, British Empire, eh? We were really racist. Like, oh boy. It's good to remember that, I suppose, and remind ourselves that we don't necessarily come from the best of places. Anything else you wanted to mention in your little weekly roundup, Mr. Joel?
Yeah, the only other thing I thought might be worth noting is that I've signed myself up for Game Pass on Xbox One. The main reason for it was so I could get Zoo Tycoon to play with my son, which we are enjoying. We sort of play maybe 20 minutes, half an hour each day. It's
good game.
I'm actually kind of surprised. Graphically, it's actually a lot. Certainly not what I was expecting. It's been enhanced. It looks nice. The interaction with the animals are nice. The animals are sort of just observing them, their behavior and things is quite, because that's what literally all we do in the game is we go and stand by each of the enclosures and watch the animals and then obviously adopt them and stuff. So yeah, and I've also tried out a couple of other games on there. I've played a bit of Super Lucky's Tale. Hue is another one. I've played that a bit on the PC before, but I've got it on Game Pass. So I thought I'd see what it's like on the Xbox as well. That's a beautiful game, Hue, actually.
Yes, I played some of that. Yeah,
it's very good. Looking forward, obviously, to sort of, you know, trying to get as much value out of it. Now seems to be the challenge. Like, I've signed up for this thing. Now I've got to get more than my money's worth out of it. I've got to beat him. So yeah.
You know, so obviously State of Decay has just got announced for May. So State of Decay 2, I'm very much looking forward to that. But also obviously, and later on this month, we've got Sea of Thieves. So those will both be part of your subscription, as we've discussed on the previous podcast. The big new Microsoft initiative to make their first party releases day and date if you have a Game Pass subscription, which is flipping awesome. Like, so cool. So I know we'll all be playing both of those games, I suspect, quite a bit.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely go on a bit of a BXB pirating session, won't we?
I think so. Yes. But you know, I've been a member for a while now, and they did a sale like where you could get subs, 3-month subs, 1-month subs for like half price. So I bought a whole bunch of them and stacked them up. So I'm like clear to the end of the year on it. I think something like that.
Cool.
But no, I think it's a cool service. I can't wait to see what they do with it. You know, they seem to be really trying things out. You know, innovating, especially with the rumors of. Have you heard the rumor that Sony is going to announce their the PS5 at E3?
No, I haven't heard that rumor. That's
the hot thing on the internet right now. I didn't put it in the news story because it's firmly in the could well be bullshit camp.
Yeah, Pro's just over a year old now, I think, isn't it? If that.
But is it a reaction? Is it a reaction to, you know, X being more powerful? A reaction to things like Game Pass, maybe? You know, it could be all kinds of things. The big question for me will be, will Sony support native backwards compatibility with the PS4? Because they haven't exactly got a track record of doing such things, have they? So I think if it was a console announcement, say for the start of next year, and they didn't do that, that would be a real mistake, wouldn't it? I mean, Microsoft have confirmed that going forwards, all games will work on the hardware you know, the latest hardware you buy, at least for the foreseeable future. I don't know, man, but I mean, it's not that crazy that we could be getting a console announcement at this point because, you know, last cycle, 360 PS3 cycle was extended beyond the norm. We're approaching the sort of 5-year mark on the Xbox One and stuff like that. So that's kind of what, and the PS4. So that's what it will kind of connect with, as it were. So I think that's a bit of an average sort of cycle length. So what do you think?
Well, ultimately, I bet console manufacturers, definitely Microsoft, Sony, and everyone will be looking at mobile phones and how easily people want to upgrade their phone on a yearly or 2-year basis. And you know, people are throwing like £500, £800 at handsets. So consoles are definitely cheaper than that. And I bet they would love you to buy a new console every year or 2 years if they could do it. The only thing that makes me a bit edgy is that, so based on the assumption that Sony stick with their partnership with AMD technology wise, they've got obviously the new Ryzen CPU technology that's been in the market for a year now on the PC side of things. So there's definitely a significant upgrade that could be done to the CPU side of any chip that goes inside the console. Graphics wise though, AMD's latest Vega tech isn't a massive step up on the Polaris tech, which is the Xbox One X. So there isn't going to be a leap forward in graphical power over what the Xbox One X got already. And I don't think AMD necessarily have anything significant in their graphics pipeline that would be affordable for Sony to put in a chip this early on. So that's if they stick with AMD, obviously. If they do what they traditionally do and move to a different provider architecture, NVIDIA perhaps. NVIDIA do have better graphics technology, so there could be a step up there.
Does it need, I mean, but you're yeah, I mean, I don't know if it necessarily needs to have better tech in it though for them to actually
so
put
if it
out
doesn't have better tech, then it'll need to do something, you know, like the Switch hasn't got better tech, but the Switch is portable. It's got another USP, hasn't it? So they could maybe there'll be some, maybe they'll have another go at something like a Vita. I know they've done the PSP and the Vita. Maybe they'll want to try and put a Switch competitor out. I don't know.
Don't you just make it like I don't know, VR supported without breakout box? I mean, stuff like that would be the obvious next step for hardware, wouldn't it?
Well, the Vive HTC have just announced a Vive Pro headset for the PC, announced last month, I think. So that's a significant step up on the initial HTC Vive, both in resolution and fidelity. And that also has the option for a wireless component, so you don't have to. The headset doesn't have to be tethered to your PC per se, but it's still prohibitively expensive. I think the headset alone is like £1,000, not mentioning the fact that you'll need a £1,000 to £2,000 PC to take maximize it. So the cost of that technology is, I think, a bit out of reach for being an attractive consumer product.
I'm just not sure that a step forward in hardware is what they necessarily motivates a new console generation now. It's probably more to do with marketing and I don't know, game deal gimmicks and shit like that.
Yeah, I agree with you, which is why I think perhaps Sony announcing some new hardware product isn't unreasonable to believe. A PS5, you know, a next generation of their PlayStation console, I think is unlikely. But I wouldn't, you know, I'm never going to say 100% no, they're not going to do it. Or I'd love to be surprised to some sense, but I'd also be a little bit annoyed because it's like, oh, I've only had my Pro about 6 or 7 months, and
I'd be glad I hadn't bought a Pro at that point. Put it that way. If that news came out at E3, I'd be made sense that I held off. Next bit of news, I'm going to throw straight over to you because I think you've done a little bit more research on it than I have.
Wouldn't say I've done a staggering amount of research on it, but it did come up in a few other podcasts that I listened to. So this is the ReedPOP, who are the owners of Penny Arcade, basically, have purchased Gamer Network. And what that literally means is that they now operate a number of the major video game media websites, media companies focusing on games. They also, obviously run the Eurogamer shows now, the Penny Arcade expos and things like that. So they all own that. So it's, I've got a list here of what they're saying: Games Industry Biz, Eurogamer, Rock Paper Shotgun, US Gamer, Outside Xbox, VG24/7, and Digital Foundry. That's obviously alongside owning the PAX stuff that they already have, EGX Res shows and stuff. So this is kind of a really big media, single company now owns all these media outlets. And, I just, it kind of makes me think of the kind of Murdoch empire, sort of, you control the media literally, and, you can spoon feed people, whatever, and shift, sculpt things in the way that you want people to read them and see them. You can take a story and you can put out the headline in a way that meets your agenda, sort of blurring away the facts and stuff, and I don't like it. So not saying that any of that happens now, but it just makes me edgy, and it also gives me agency not to trust sometimes when I'm on these sites. Can I really believe what it brings the fake news straight to the front of my mind. Like, I have to be more vigilant now. Can I go and trust these articles and feature pieces, opinion pieces immediately, or do I now need to start reading between the lines of some of these? I need to go off and find other facts to see if I can, is this actually true and stuff. So that's what worries me about it.
I guess, yes. I mean, at the other side of the spectrum, I'd never actually heard of ReedPOP before. I didn't really realize that Penny Arcade were no longer independent. There you go. That's the power of this. I mean, the one big media conglomerate that I had come across before because of its purchasing and subsequent closing of many outlets that we loved, which was Ziff Davis. Who own and run IGN, Humble Bundle. They're the guys that bought up 1UP and then closed 1UP. If you remember 1UP, I hope you do. I fucking loved 1UP. Great website.
Yeah, I know it.
They did the same thing to some Xbox websites. They did the same thing to the magazines and stuff. They own a lot of the actual physical publications of things like that. PC Magazine is still one that they run and things like that. So yeah, consolidation is what you're talking about, isn't it? Media companies consolidating by buying up their competition until we get to the point where maybe there's only one. Like you mentioned the Comcast stuff, and Disney are doing it, aren't they, in the film and entertainment media space? I think one of the big problems comes with the way in which competition laws don't really work that well in the US. They don't seem to regulate this sort of behavior. I don't think you get away with it in the UK because we have quite a lot of governing processes and laws in place to prevent monopolies and stuff, theoretically. Anyway.
I would rephrase that as to you don't get away with it in the EU, but
okay, yeah. I remind myself that won't be us for much longer.
Dredge up Brexit again, though. So carry on, Ben.
Sore spot. But yeah, I mean, so what I would expect, if Gamergate was really about ethics in video game journalism, they must be up in arms right now about this, mustn't they? Because the potential ethical implications of such things is off the charts. RPS and Eurogamer. I mean, but then again, they were already under a previous network, right? Which I was not aware of. It's one of those things where I guess unless you really do the digging, you don't necessarily realize that a lot of these companies are owned by the same parent company, and therefore, like you said, can manipulate the media that it's consumed. I could be thinking, oh, I'm getting a really good cross section of news here because I'm looking at RPS and I'm looking at Eurogamer, we often use on our website, don't we, as our sources for news and stuff when we post news. and then it's like, well, actually, no, they're the same company, really. So that's Well, we'll always stay independent unless ReedPOP, you come and offer me a check, and then we can talk. So that's fine. Then a Nintendo Direct happened.
Yep, that was quite.
Didn't blow me away, this one, Joel. I mean, I wasn't super excited by most of the stuff that came out of this. I have to admit.
It was. I mean, Smash Brothers was announced. I think everyone knew that was going to happen anyway. There was a bit of a teaser trailer. It didn't really show anything at all. It was much more a very early announcement teaser trailer. A Luigi's Mansion remake. So the original GameCube launch title. The hardest game I've ever played in my life. The reason it is because I had a Japanese import GameCube, and that was the one game that came free with it. That was in Japanese, and never before have I never been able to complete a tutorial in a game because I cannot read Japanese. So yeah, fun story for you there. So that's having a remake for the 3DS anyway.
You did that to yourself then, really?
Yes. It was promptly traded in for the American version. So that was a great game, though. Really good, fun game. So it's getting a remake for the 3DS. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker is getting a Switch port. I
don't even know what that is. Is that an iOS game?
No. So that is a. If you ever played Super Mario 3D Land, there are sort of these little side missions off the world where you play as Toad, and there are these sort of miniature sort of cubish dioramas that you just have to walk around in a specific order, collecting like 6 stars or coins. I can't quite remember. They were quite fun little mini games, and they spun it off into its own title in its own right. So they made Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, where you got like 50 of these mini game levels sequentially to play through. So it was on the Wii U. It was always on my radar to buy, but I never bought it because I didn't actually play on my Wii U that much. So the fact that there's a Switch port is quite nice. And then lastly, there's South Park, The Fractured Butthole is being ported to the Switch as well. So it's a lot of ports and remakes, basically, was the general
Crash Bandicoot as well, yeah?
I didn't spot that one.
Pretty sure the one that was there was like a Crash Bandicoot remaster that was exclusive to PlayStation, and it's no longer not going to be exclusive to PlayStation. And it's coming to Switch, coming to Xbox, as well.
Oh, cool.
So, why would I play Crash when I could play Mario? Just don't know why I'd bother. But kind of a quiet one. But it is kind of crazy that Nintendo is such a strange thing sometimes, isn't it? At times they are the most backwards, like failing to grasp what modern gaming is, especially in their like multiplayer infrastructure, and yet they can be really progressive. Like, we don't need big events to make announcements. We don't need to wait until the end of a quarter to drop news. Here you go, have a direct. We're gonna tell you that Smash Brothers for the Switch is actually going to be out by the end of the year. There you go. Why not? Didn't need to wait for E3. Didn't need to wait for anything. Just gonna drop the news. Because that's how modern media should work now. I mean, you don't need these events, surely. And I think that's amazing. That the way they communicate with their fans and their player base is really, really good. I actually really like how they integrate the news as well onto the Switch interface and stuff like that. And it's really easy to read and easy to understand. That's cool. I mean, ports and remasters and stuff, because everybody wants them on the Switch. Everybody wants to play these games on the Switch. And to be fair, I can totally dig that. I mean, just being able to take these console games with you on the go. I think South Park's a great fit, actually, because of the way that game plays and the turn-based nature of the combat. You don't need to be super accurate on the controls and stuff. You won't get punished if you're playing it on the bus. So I think that makes a lot of sense to be on the Switch. So awesome. Awesome news is awesome. We like good news. In less good news, slightly, I guess it makes sense considering these platforms are kind of becoming less and less relevant. And also, if the rumors of a PS5 are true, it would also make sense, wouldn't it now? That PlayStation Plus is no longer going to include Vita and PS3 titles from the 8th of March, 2019. So a year's time is when they're going to stop putting Vita and PS3 titles on there. Never good to lose something from a service you're paying from. It's never a good look, especially as they're not saying we're replacing it with something else or we're going to give you something else to make up for this subtraction. However, if a PS5 comes out next year, they'd include PS5 games, I would assume. So I don't know. What I mean, how did you take this news? It seems to like it makes sense, but
yeah, it doesn't necessarily particularly affect me in the sense that I don't really ever turn. In fact, my PlayStation 3 hasn't been plugged in for quite a long time now. And although I see on PS Plus the PS3 titles on the PS4, yeah, most of them I've either played or chosen not to play, or don't have the bandwidth to go back and try at this point. So it's logical, or just maybe if it impacts some people.
I mean, it's great on the Xbox One that we get 360 games because they're always backwards compatible games. Sometimes, or actually quite often, when they announce a 360 game in Games with Gold, it's actually that's the announcement of it becoming backwards compatible, because it's not one that was already in the library. So it's kind of like a double whammy. That's why I always look forward to the Games with Gold announcements more than the Plus announcements, because their depth of the catalog, it's like, oh god, what new backwards compatible, like what's going to be added in this month, what's going to appear. Sure, we just got Brave, the Kinect game based off of the Disney film that nobody cares about, as one of the backwards compatible titles, but for each one of those there's I can't actually think of any right now, but there's been loads of good ones, haven't there?
Well, if they get the entire 360 catalog available,
do you think they're going to do that?
Actually, no. I don't think it's possible, because we know, for example, from
they can't do anything with everyone.
Yeah, there's licensing issues like music licensing, song licensing, and stuff like that. That'll definitely mean that some titles will never be able to be done. But if they can get the majority of it, which I think is their goal, and the Xbox, it's just. Firstly, it's a staggering technical achievement, particularly emulation of the 360 is. I'm still impressed to this day about that and how well it works. And yeah, it's amazing, because I just sit here. I've got my huge library of 360 games, and I literally don't have to. If I want to go and play one, I don't have to go and get my old 360 and wire it up and stuff. I can just throw the disc in and download it, and then that's it. I'm done. It's yeah, it's great. It's great actually. And it makes the Games with Gold, I can actually get the 360 titles as well. It's it's amazing.
It's a better offering, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, just let me just. I'm going to mention this. It's not on my news list here, but just as we're talking about 360 games, Crackdown just came to backwards compatible, 4K enhanced. They enhanced Crackdown for the Xbox One X, and they also just enhanced the original Forza Horizon, and they both look amazing. It's like it's like witchcraft. How on earth did they make these games look this good? It's truly. And here's my wife bringing me a drink. Everybody live on the podcast. Didn't even wave. No waves. Thank you very much, honey. But because my throat's getting a bit croak already, and I know I've got a lot more to talk about. But it's so amazing, like that they're doing that for those 360 games. We're talking about a game. Crackdown, I think, is 11 years old. Right, and I'm playing that again now on my Xbox One X, remembering just how fucking awesome that game is. And I re-downloaded Forza Horizon as well for the same reason. Like it gives a fresh perspective on these titles that you love from years. I love it. That's why playing and the PS5 announcement worries me a little bit, or the rumor I should say, because there's no guarantee that they're going to be smart about it, is there? Do you know what I mean? There really isn't. Their PlayStation Now service is freaking garbage compared to the way Xbox is dealing with backwards compatibility. Like it's just, yeah. So, but let's look forward now. We've got our first I think this is our first big E3 thing, really, actually, isn't it? Because it's going to be shown off massively at the show this year. Ubisoft quietly, and they do it every quarter or something. They talk about the state of the Division. And they kind of update what's coming up and what new DLC they're bringing and what things they're changing and stuff. After I think we just had the 1 year anniversary. Was it 2 year anniversary? It might have been 2 year anniversary actually.
I think it might be 2 now. Yeah,
it's 2. Joel, you mentioned you played the Division back in the early days, and we're a bit disappointed. Trust me, man, they've made some massive steps forward with that game, and in a tradition of that, they mentioned, guess what? The Division 2 is happening. It's being made and it's coming out. We don't have a lot more details than that at the moment, but I thought we'd bring it up now because the Division was one of those games that, it showed a lot of potential. I remember being blown away with the visual density of the city in the Division, how how incredibly realistic and lifelike that environment was, even though, you know, you couldn't go in every house and you couldn't, you know, wasn't that sort of level of detail. But I think the potential, I mean, where do you think they take the Division 2? Do we stay in New York or are we going somewhere else?
Oh, good question. As much as I guess it'll be difficult, I think, for them to stay in New York, because would everyone lambast them then for it? It would probably retain a lot of the current feel. It would limit their ability to change the game or bring the game forward, I think. So maybe they might try and set it in a new environment, a new kind of outbreak per se. So follow the same core themes, but a new setting. But then again, I don't know. Yeah, maybe they do. That setting was really beautiful in the Division. It was very well done. The environment, I really, it was a joy to look at. And you know, even though the game itself had its other problems, that was certainly possibly its biggest highlight for me. Actually, was the setting in that game.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. To your original question, I don't actually know. I think they might go gutsy and go for something a bit new. I think they'll carry over those core themes and try a new environment, a new outbreak, maybe. That's just a guess.
I don't know if we do a new outbreak, because did you finish the story? Right. I don't think necessarily, because what the Division is an insert. It's sort of like how did they describe
sleeper cell kind of thing, isn't it?
They're like a sleeper cell, aren't they? Of good guys rather than bad guys. So agents that get activated in need of when there's a crisis. So I think that if they go somewhere else, it should be a different crisis. And they should maybe have a different setup. If you just go to another city though, I don't know, Chicago, San Francisco, somewhere like that in the States, I feel like perhaps it wouldn't be different enough. Do you know what I mean? So maybe if they do something, either it's a very different feeling in the US, like a rural setting, or they do something somewhere else in the world. And because Ubisoft, of course, is this huge multinational, sort of nation reflected company. You know, they're based, parent company in France, but they have studios all over the world. So they have loads of cool places that they could draw inspiration from. I'm thinking of somewhere like Madrid or Rio de Janeiro, or there's so many fantastic iconic cities that could give a really different vibe to a game like that. They could totally do that, and they could totally pull that off. I think gaming is such a global thing now. It doesn't have to be a bunch of white American dudes running around. It really doesn't. It could be anything. Christ, mate, wow, there you go. The future. You said it in like a cyberpunk city. Why not? Like, you could do that. There's so much cool shit you could do with that. I feel like maybe they'll want to tie the stories together though, so I think it would probably be modern day setting. But I love that the location and the environment design was fantastic. I also really like the character design, how you modded and changed your custom character, but with very realistic jackets and backpacks and hats and all of that. It has a really unique feeling to it, the Division. Joel, we should drop back in sometime. I'm waiting for that X patch, is what I'm waiting for, the 4K patch, which is being worked on, and then I'm going to get back in, I think.
Yeah, if they do drop a 4K X patch, I would go back just to look at that environment and take it in, see how pretty they can make it look.
I remember that was the first game I really utilized my Elite controller, because I had the paddles customized for the different things and stuff, for the different abilities and things like that in the game, and I never had to use the D-pad basically for anything, because I really got into that game like hardcore for a while. That I was playing in the what was it called? The exclusion area.
The purple zone.
Dark zone?
Dark zone, yes.
Dark zone, that was it, wasn't it? So I played in that, I was doing all the competitive stuff, that weird competitive, cooperative, griefing kind of game stuff in there. Very weird and different and creative and stuff. Like, some really interesting ideas there. And they've spent so much time tweaking and correcting and balancing that game now. It's almost a different experience, like, playing it now. They just put a huge free content update in there as well, where there's the big docked aircraft carrier, and there's a whole new area of that. I've not played any of that. I should definitely go back if they put that patch in and check that out. That'd be cool. But yes, I know, for example, the old editor-in-chief of Xbox from back in the day, Mark, he massively plays that game, stuck with it through all the years, his max level and everything and stuff like that. He's really stuck with that. This is Ubisoft's thing, though, isn't it now? They put out these games with this huge amount of tail to them where they keep updating it. They keep supporting it. It's fantastic. They're doing it with For Honor. They did it with Rainbow Six. They've done it with The Division. That's the way, man. That is the way to do this shit going forward. It's really smart. Anyway, so that's looking forward. I'm looking forward to that already then at the Ubisoft conference. I've got the time booked off work already, Joel. So I've got that week off. I'm ready to go. I'm excited for June or July. It's one of those months. I never remember. But it's coming up, E3. We'll obviously be talking about that loads more as we get closer and closer into the summer and stuff like that. But now, let's talk about some games we've actually been playing.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Joel, I want you to kick us off with the one because we both played this. Deep Rock Galactic.
Yeah. So Deep Rock Galactic is, how do I describe it? It's a kind of co-op sci-fi kind of shooter / Minecraft. It's a bit of a genre mashup. You play basically these dwarves and you and up to 3 other friends can go into you go explore these mines. Basically you get deployed into these mines, these procedurally generated mines full of different elements and enemies and bugs and things like this, and you all have an objective that's basically like collect 250 of this certain type of element, and there are a few bonus objectives which normally like collect this type of mushroom or flower or other item that you may find around there, and you edge your way forwards through these mines. So they're sort of these large chambers with interconnecting tunnels, so you go and explore each of these big chambers. They're normally full of enemies. You have to defend yourselves against waves of enemies before you sort of edge forward, just trying to find these, trying to find more of the resources. So you steadily get deeper into the mine. And then once you've collected enough of the resource, that's when you can call for pickup, basically, which will, so your dropship will return. This big sort of drilling machine will come down and you have to get back to it. But even once you've completed the objective, the deeper you go into the mine, the more you'll find some of the rare elements, and you need these rarer elements to unlock and upgrade your items. So there's sort of this RPG element to it as well, where you've got sort of equipment, and you can upgrade that when you're back at your main base and things like this. So you've got to hedge your risks because you've obviously got limited resources. You can, as long as you find the right type of elements as you're going, you can sort of resupply as you're going, but you have to edge your way forwards in these caverns. You've got to make a choice about tactically when's the right time to withdraw. And yeah, they've got different classes as well. There's sort of this gunner class who's much more usually the aggressive type. He's got massive guns. You can shoot your way through the mines and sort of destroy the whole terrain. So you can chip away at anything in the game, make your own paths and things like this. The gunner can shoot through that. He can do it, but it's not the best way to use him. You've got the engineer who can deploy turrets. He can build platforms so you can get to higher levels. You've got scout who can go ahead and can mark up different types of resources and things, and you've also got the digger, who's this guy with 2 massive drill arms. So he's the guy who's great at drilling tunnels, getting you forward and stuff, and they actually complement each other quite well. You can play your role, and as long as you work well, we played it with Ben and myself and another one of our friends. We were a gunner, an engineer, and a digger, and we were quite an effective team. We would quite often go in, get the resources, and then me and the digger would retreat, leaving Ben to die right at the end of the level, which is the definite way to play it.
I was thinking about it. Do you think it hampered us not having a scout? Because one of the problems we were having was not being able to find the resources we needed. So I think if you probably had the scout in there, I bet you'd find them loads easier, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I think it definitely helps. A team of 4 gives you all the abilities you need. Now you can play it. You could play it as all the same class. Everyone has a pickaxe. You can all dig your way through. You can always progress, but and it's slow progress, and it's better when you're playing with other people, and you're all playing a specific role to make the team overall better.
So this game is in game preview, right? So it's not finished.
Yeah, early access. So we played it for a fair while. We had a a couple of connection issues. We kept getting dropped back out of the game, which happened a couple of times. We also had some issues with the procedural generation. There's one chamber which literally we just couldn't find the next area to go to, and there was just not enough of the resource that we had to collect. In the end, the driller in the team just randomly drilled a tunnel, and by pure chance and luck, managed to break through into another tunnel, which led us forwards. But after backtracking from that new point, we found that the actual way to go was almost in the ceiling of the chamber, which we would never have got to. So they definitely need to do a bit of tweaking on the procedural generation. But I think we played 3 or 4 levels, and that's the only one that really threw us off on that case.
What about the one where the extraction ship had no way to get into it?
Yeah, we got back to the extraction ship, and there's a door on it with a ramp up, but that was sort of buried in the rock, so we had to drill around it until we literally found the ramp. And you're doing this under the stress of a time limit and almost unlimited enemies coming at you, which made it quite tense and tight. But we all got out there, didn't we? we all escaped that one. Ben didn't die.
That was the one I made out. Yeah, I got in with that one. Yeah. I think perhaps I think maybe the classes, you're going to see there's going to be balancing here. I think that's going to happen. I feel like maybe you're penalized too much if you're not running a squad of 4, because there's such specific abilities that help so much in each class that if you're down 1, you do definitely notice its absence. I really like the idea of that game, though. I really like the concept. I really like the look of it, that it's genuinely pitch black in these tunnels, that if you don't have, if you turn off your lights and you don't use your flares, you can't see anything. And there's a real sort of foreboding sense of claustrophobia at times, where they're coming in around you when you're in the really tight caves and stuff, especially when you're doing the extraction and you're trying to rush out. I got really turned around that time you guys left me, and I could not for the life of me work out where I had to go. Now I think that's part of the experience, but it's also maybe a bit of a problem, because when you sort of send your mule back, when you go for extraction, it says follow the mule, and often it'll do something like just disappear through a hole in the ceiling. And you're just like, well, I can't really follow that then. Bye. So maybe there's some pathing stuff that they could improve with that as well. But there's loads of strategy, and it's a really fun, pure cooperative experience. And there's leveling, and there's RPG mechanics. There's a home base that you launch all the missions from. It's got a real sense of character to it, and it's really fun and kind of funny as well. There's dancing you can do in your home base, which is the 3rd-person camera, so you can all just stand and dance around the jukebox, which they understand that any shared experience needs a good dance, and they've done that. So that's a box ticked in my mind. No, it's just really cool, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with it and where it progresses and stuff like that with the balancing. I think the most important thing is, like you said, is the procedurally generated elements need to be tweaked, and those algorithms need to be looked at a little bit, because we would never have found that way out of that cavern.
Yeah, no, I think we were literally on the verge of just leaving, failing,
rage quitting it.
Just before our driller. That was blind luck, though. The only other thing I think I'd add is that this is definitely a co-op experience. Playing this game solo, it loses a lot of what makes it fun. I think there's the camaraderie that you get from playing it with friends or other players, and sort of playing the role and helping the team really is a large part of what made the game really fun when we played it. And in solo you don't get that. So if you're thinking of buying this for a good solo experience, it's probably not best. I mean, there's certainly more they can do with that, and it'll be interesting to see if they do evolve it, but at present I'd probably hold off.
I mean, it's not by mistake that when I got the codes for us, they sent me 4. There's they know that when they send the code, they for the whole team, because the whole point is playing together. And yes, that's maybe that's something they need to look at as well. The fun element to have, in single player, how does that work? How do they balance that and stuff like that? Yeah, absolutely. Right, I'm going to talk about a few of the games I've played, because I've played a lot of games, Joel. First of all, I have been a busy boy, and this isn't even all of them. So first of all, there's some I can't even talk about yet, but I'll tell you about them after the show. Couple of games by Milestone Games, which is an Italian developer that I guess I'd never really heard of. But when I looked at what they'd made, I was like, oh, right. They're the guys that make all the weird racing games, like all the weird racing games, lots of motorbike racing games throughout the years, and often well-received racing games, just games that you don't necessarily look at and like associate with a developer, if you know what I mean. Solid B tier games, double A sort of quality games, things like that. And they've just put out 2 games: Monster Energy Supercross, official licensed video game of the FIM Championship or something like that. It's got a huge, long, confusing title. Basically, it's motorbikes that go around on a dirt track very quickly, doing jumps, racing each other, and winning / losing and crashing horribly. Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, I have never seen this sport before, for more than maybe like, I don't know, 20 seconds when flicking through Sky at 2 a.m. You know, it's one of the sports buried deep in the Eurosport channel selection. You know what I'm talking about, Joel?
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah. The niche area of sports, really, isn't it?
You know, it's like the dodgeball movie when it's like ESPN 8, the Ocho. You know, it's the equivalent of ESPN 8. That's where this sport will live. I mean, I'm a little bit reluctant to even call it a sport, but okay. You know, video games are sports now, so I guess everything can be. That's fine. But you know, so I've never really seen it before, and obviously there's a lot more to it than how I just described it. I played the game predominantly on easy and medium settings. Like all good racing games now, there is a whole different ways of like modifying those difficulties and stepping up to realism and all kinds of things like that. You know, the bike has a lot of control. You can lean the bike. You can adjust its attitude. You know, you have to think about how, you do your downhill racing. I'm guessing it's something similar, that if you're coming off of a jump, you need to think about the positions, the wheels, so that you don't stack it over the handlebars. It's much the same in the Supercross game. So, you're coming off a big burn and you got to think about the landing angle, because there's a couple of times I came down too heavy on the front wheel and I'm going over the bars, stuff like that. So there's a lot of that comes into it, as well as sort of horizontal control of the bike in the air, because these races are insane, Joel. There's like 30 people out on motorbikes at the same time in these things. It's just crazy. So, you're kind of barging your way through and trying to think about different, when there's 20 of you taking a jump at the same time, it gets kind of nuts. But you can see why Monster Energy drinks sponsor this, to the point where they're the title sponsors. It's like, yeah, you want some of that Red Bull money, don't you? You want some of that. And I get it. And it is crazy and it's fun. And I had fun playing it, and it looks nice and it plays pretty well for the most part. There's some framey issues when there's loads of people on the screen at the same time, even on the X. But, for the most part, the visuals are very nice. It's got what I'm assuming are all the official sponsors in it, but I wouldn't know if it wasn't. So fine. You customize your rider, various championships across America. It's fun to be had, definitely. Anything you want to bring up as a massive Supercross fan, Joel? I imagine you've got lots of questions.
No, there's not. It doesn't sound too dissimilar, I guess, from Descenders, except like Descenders being the mountain biking game that I played a few weeks back that we talked about in the previous podcast. Sounds like it, as long as it's got all the handling controls and things right, it'll probably appeal to fans of motocross.
It seems to. Yes.
So, and yeah, but Descenders didn't have a racing mode. So I kind of, the idea of going into sort of this, start line 30 people on motocross bikes, all trying to go into this narrow first jump and try to come out of it alive, sounds quite fun. And
it's mad.
It's like those YouTube videos you sometimes see, isn't it, of these crazy races and things. So
it's totally mad. Yeah, there is definitely fun to be had with that, definitely. Okay, so the other milestone game I played was Gravel. Now, this I found a lot easier to get on with, right? So Gravel is this racing game which is focused purely around off-road racing. Now, there's a little bit of tarmac in there occasionally in the stages, but for the most part, we're talking dirt, we're talking sand, we're talking mud, we're talking snow, things like that. So all the fun stages from the racing games you remember when you grew up, the bits that were always crazy and drifting and, mad, dodging through trees and all of that. And there's various different types of events within that setting. But the way they've presented Gravel is as like a high octane, totally awesome, super radical TV show with FMV and everything. And it's funny and stupid. And I would totally watch that show. They have like boss races which you see in the FMV, and they're all fully acted guys in like racing suits, like snarling at the screen like this. I'm gonna get you. It's just totally over the top and stupid and funny, and I loved it. It's so much fun. I mean, you've got enough variety in the different types of races. So you've got point-to-point time attacks. You've got this sort of lap-based one where the person in last place, like hot potato, almost gets disqualified every 30 seconds. So you need to keep constantly pushing forward and trying to move up the pack. You've got just general circuit races in, like, again, in the kind of the Supercross, motocross type environments, in stadiums. You got like the crazy from like the Forza games where you're like doing the whole rush game type, which is just across beautiful scenery, just bombing it in trucks, across deserts, over boats, through the water, around cliff edges, all that kind of stuff. It looks lovely the whole time. It plays very nicely. Like I said, the progression is through this TV show, so you're kind of like playing through episodes. Then you reach like the season finale, and that's when you fight the boss guy at a particular specialist sequence of events and stuff. You just one-on-one, which is great fun and always a challenge. Actually, they really get the balance of the difficulty really well in this game. And it's not overly complex. It's not an open world. It's a series of events presented in an easy to understand, fun manner, and that goes a long way for me because I was playing Forza 7. His career mode is quite bitty, hard to follow, hard to get invested in, very sterile at times. And then the other side of the coin is like the Horizon games, which are beautiful open worlds, but it's kind of a lot of work just to get to the races and get to the events and stuff. And this just, I could chill out, I could listen to some bad off-brand rock music and enjoy this ludicrous FMV. And they clearly were having fun in making this game. So it's hard not to have fun playing it. So I gave Gravel 4 stars. I mean, there were very little to fault there, Both of these games have the instant rewind, pull yourself out of shit creek ability that the Forza games really made into a big thing. So the instant rewind thing, so you can just go backwards and do it again. I kind of find any racing game that doesn't have that now sort of backwards, I suppose. Maybe that's just because I'm a dirty casual, Joel. I mean,
no, I love that feature. I love that. Like thinking back to playing F1 2017, and I like to do the almost half or full race distances sometimes, and it's just amazing how quite you zone out, and then suddenly just for some reason just completely don't bother trying to take a corner. It's like, what the hell was I doing? And then you have to use rewind. It's saved my ass many times, and it helps make the game fun, because if 75% of the way into a really long race and you fuck up and then that's it's over, you kind of like, no, I don't want to go back, and I'm not going to bother and go back and do that again. And you just put the controller down and you move on. But with those kind of modes, it's just rewind, get it done, and it keeps you involved and interested. So I really
what it makes me do is, like, I'm never happy with anything less than first. So it's like if I don't take that corner just right and stop that guy passing me in the final turn, I'm going to keep doing it until I do.
Yeah.
Which I feel like there's a slight loss of purity to that, in a way, to the racing experience, that it does lose something. That it does lose something by having that instant rewind feature in all racing games. But yeah, because I'd never be happier with anything less than maybe second, maybe if I'm doing like a series of events and then I know it doesn't matter, but basically I have to always come first. So yeah, it's I'm not sure. I mean, it's weird because I remember playing I think it was the Need for Speed game. Yeah, the Payback that came out last year, and that doesn't have it. So yeah, constantly having to restart races, especially as some of the races in that game, like, you had to win them. So it's like, if you lose it on that last corner, you have to do the whole fucking race again. And that felt strange. That felt like, why wouldn't you have this feature in there at this point, But hey. So no, I really enjoyed them. Both of these are good games. I'm going to keep an eye on this developer now that I've become aware of them. They seem to be producing really solid, enjoyable, somewhat niche, somewhat weird, fun racing games. Definitely worth checking out, both of these. If you're in the mood for motorcycles on dirt, Supercross, and if you're in the mood for lots of different crazy vehicles on dirt, Gravel. I don't think anybody's talking about Gravel. So I think people should check it out. If you're in the mood for that kind of racing experience, like a rally game, but not as so serious as Dirt, for example, which is just super, super serious now, the whole Colin McRae niche. WRC is more accessible than Dirt is, but even then, that's super serious. Gravel is just bonkers drifting and you racing Humvees and stupid trucks, and it's really good fun. Really, really good. I'm going to take a little break. Joel.
Shall I talk about Xenon Valkyrie?
Actually, we'll get to that. I want to hear from you about Tacoma.
Yeah. So Tacoma is one that I purchased at a sale a long time ago, and I finally got around to playing it. So it's it's odd because I had quite a few preconceptions, I guess, about this game, because I've seen a lot of people have talked about it and various elements, and so I was quite surprised that the game. I wasn't expecting such a linear experience. I thought it would be a bit more kind of all over the place, and it would be up to you to kind of piece it all together. And I guess there is a kind of certain element of, there are these sort of 6 major scenes, really, or 6 or 8 major scenes, and you do have to kind of order them yourself chronologically. But I actually thought it'd be a lot more bitty than that. It was okay. There were certain threads to the story that I definitely found interesting, but most of those threads are from reading the sort of emails and texts and stuff you get on the computers, or some of the leaflets and the sort of peripheral stuff around the side. So it's quite easy to miss, I think, if you just plow through the whole game. And it was slightly shorter than I expected, but then I don't actually know why I expected it to be so long, because Gone Home isn't exactly a a long hour, bed in for a 40-hour gaming session. So I have no idea why I thought that. So yeah, overall I thought it was okay. There were some threads to the narrative I found some quite interesting. I think it kind of didn't have the same feel as Gone Home, the same end result, I would say, in how I felt once I finished the game. Like, Gone Home builds you up for what you expect is just going to be this sort of tragic end to the story, and it actually isn't. It's a very happy ending, and Tacoma kind of follows that, but it doesn't have the same impact.
Well, it tries. Now I think about it, it tries to do the same thing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And yet, I think probably because of what you're dealing with, you have a lot less invested in it, because everything is the problem I have with Tacoma. The big problem I have with Tacoma is that it's just a very sterile world. And while ostensibly, it's packed full of all the incidental storytelling that Gone Home has, actually adding in that whole the VR, it's not the VR, AR scrubbing story mechanic, it felt like a cop out. It felt like they didn't have the confidence to do the environmental storytelling that Gone Home had in that setting. So instead, let's have these little vignettes, these little theater pieces almost that you got to like watch from different, basically you'd stand in one room and watch it, and then you go and stand in another room and watch it, and then you stand in a third room and watch the same thing again from a slightly different perspective. And it's just like, the problem I had with that is that you were talking about it, you thought it'd be more non-linear. I actually didn't like how non-linear that was. It's like they went to see that, I forget what play it was. There was a play, wasn't there, that was like you'd walk around with the actors, and you could all the actors were in all the different rooms of a building all at once, and you could then foresee, you'd have to choose which bits of the play that you would enjoy. And it felt like somebody on that team went to that and went, hey, let's make a video game of that. And it just I actually think, considering it's sci-fi and it's dealing with AI and it's dealing with like this commercialization of space, I thought I'd be way more engaged and interested than I actually was. I did like the ending, because how could you not like a nice happy ending? That's quite pat. But it just, I didn't have that emotional resonance with me at all like Gone Home did. Not at all.
I think what I thought was one of the reasons I hadn't been keen to immediately jump into this is because I almost expected it to be quite a lot of effort and hard work to try and piece the whole plot together, because you can view these scenes, you can view these replays, and you can fast forward and rewind, and you're supposed to follow. But I thought that you would go onto the station and literally you'd have the whole thing, and you would be going backwards. The whole story is given to you at once, and you'd be doing the whole thing. So there'd be lots of going around, lots of repeating, just trying to figure out where people are at certain points. But it's not like they've taken that concept and then broken it down into sort of 8 smaller chunks, and then they've actually put markers on the specific points that show you which color person and the key point to do certain things. So I originally was a little off put because I thought it's going to be a lot of effort for me to go through, and I have to get a notebook out and make sure I'm tracking who these people are and where they're going to get the whole plot thread. But they actually really simplified it, and
to the point where why did they bother?
Yeah, you can burn through it in about 40 minutes. Actually, the entire game, if you want. It's.
I mean, I don't think it's the plot or the sort of narrative that's hurt from that storytelling style. I think it's the characters that are hurt. That because of that non-linear storytelling, I struggled to, and because it's that AR thing where they're not really there. There's like the fat yellow person, and then there's the tall pink person, you know, which you've then looked at their little PDF sort of things, and you can see, you know, more about them, see their picture and read about them, but you don't connect with them. And I think it's like Gone Home. Obviously, there were no characters in Gone Home at all, right? They were never physically there. But I think that worked for it. That made you create them in your head, whereas this gave you this sort of homunculi that ended up weakening that resonance with the character for me instead of strengthening it. Yeah, experimental, innovative, but a very rocky sophomore project, you know, for Fulbright Company. You know, I've got Gone Home artwork on my wall in my house. I won't have any Tacoma artwork on my wall. Put it that way. You know, it's just, I'm cool. Look, try things. They don't always work. You know, I look forward to seeing what they do next. But I was curious to see what you thought. Yeah, definitely. Right. Let me tick off another couple off of my list. I don't know why I like this game as much as I do, but I really like UFC 3, Joel. I mean,
do you watch mixed martial arts at all? No,
I tried. Wrestling, but get this, I've tried to watch MMA, but I found it too brutal.
Isn't MMA now coming into WWE though? Hasn't
there's always been a cross pollination. Well, no, you Brock Lesnar, mate. Brock Lesnar was a WWE wrestler, won the belt, went off to UFC, won their heavyweight belt, came back to WWE, is now rumored to go back. He could be going back to UFC again. Dana White, the guy that runs UFC, I think he dreams of creating these sort of characters with his guys that are a little bit like WWE, but not so over the top. He would love more of that pageantry and engagement that comes off of WWE, but the actual sport itself for me is just too brutal. I like WWE because, you know, obviously they get injured and they get hurt and stuff. That happens all the time, but nobody's actually trying to kill you in there. Whereas they are in UFC. They want to kick your head off. That's literally what it is. And wow, so many props to those guys. Like, that level of combat is incredible, and the skill involved and the physical acumen and all of that, amazing. I just don't find it fun to watch. However, as a video game, I find it super fun. So Ben Bulletproof Hall came back for this UFC 3 after his successful title run in UFC 2. And he was back. He's changed from light heavyweight to welterweight class now. He's going for a new belt, and he did very well. He's got very, very powerful fists and very, very powerful feet. I don't even ask me how to do the submissions in this game because I don't know. I can't work it out. I did the tutorials and I just suck at any of the mat wrestling. I don't find that bit fun in this game at all. But the striking, the actual like punching and kicking in this game, there is nothing better. Absolutely nothing better. And I play this game and I'm watching it and I'm looking at it and going, oh my God, imagine if they made a wrestling game that looked like this. It is amazing how good their character models are and how they show like damage as they're in a fight, you know, getting bruised and split lips and cheeks and just bruising in the body. And it all starts to come up in real time.
Who is the developer? It's an EA published.
It's EA. Yeah, it's EA. Yeah, it's EA in-house. Yeah. And it's just, but you know why they can do that? It's because basically they're the only things on the screen during that fight. You know, it's the cage. They basically shadow out all the crowds. You can't even see the crowd. There's maybe a ref in there. So you're looking at two really high poly, very high quality texture models that are then just kicking the shit out of each other. And, you know, it's fun as all hell to play. I predominantly played the career mode. You know, I'm upgrading my fighter. I'm training him up as we go. I'm engaging with social media, which I thought was a really nice element of this game, which I think they could definitely build upon the idea of how important it is for these fighters to have that presence, because that's what helps them get booked. That's what helps them move up the card, is that they have these big fan bases. So you're doing things like, oh, tonight I'm gonna play video games with my fans on Twitter. You know, that's one of the options you can choose in this game. Or I'm going to have a meetup at a local restaurant with some fans and stuff, like, you know, really engaging with them and stuff on the tweets and stuff. And their loading screens you have like fake tweets on the loading screen. So it's like all the positive messages come up and the negative ones come up as well. It's like, Bulletproof's, he's a fake champ. He don't know what he's doing. And it's like, it just makes it feel connected, and it gives it a nice sense of realism to it. I think they did that very well. Then there's things like sparring and learning new moves and upgrading your fighter, and you progress along, and you know, there's some FMV in there, you know, interviews with Dana White, and they do these video packages which put your fighter in them as if, you know, like, you know, the proper TV package. It's all like cuts to your guy training, and then it cuts to him, you know, at the weigh-in, and it cuts to him like shouting at his opponent, and it uses your the model that you've created really well and integrates it all in there, and it has this great sense of TV production, and it feels very realistic to the product that you would actually watch on television. So the whole career mode is excellent. I won my welterweight championship fight. I'm currently defending it. You know, I think I'll probably retire. I'm undefeated, by the way, Joel. Basically, if I was going to lose a fight, I would restart the fight. Video games, man.
You just can't rewind.
Restart the fight.
Carry on.
Well, because there's this thing, right, in UFC. It models the way you take damage so realistically. Like, you can start a fight. If you take a kick to the head in the wrong place, usually like a heel kick, like behind here, you will drop in one hit, and that'll be the fight over. That happens in reality, and it happens in the game. So if that happened to me in the game, I'm like, fuck that, restart. You know, I want my undefeated streak. So I'm like 21, 22 fights to 0. All my fights won with knockout, I might add. All of them in the first round. I am just that devastating, Bulletproof. And I think I'm going to retire on top, like you said. Yeah, I think that's the only way to go. I'm getting quite old at this point. I started playing it. I made him my real age, like 33. So he's in his 40s at this point, I think. And it's just like, mate, you probably want to stop doing this. Yeah,
past your prime now.
Think of the kids. Think of the kids. Like, I'm just saying, you've got a family back home. You know, you want to come home to them. One of these days, you're going to take that kick and you'll be dead. Sometimes I'll knock people out in this game, and I think I've killed them. Like, the way they hit the ground, it's just like, Jesus Christ. That's why I don't watch this on TV. It's just disturbing. But it's a lot of fun, and there's no better striking simulator. Seriously, I again, like with Supercross, as I don't really know the sport, I can't really talk to accuracy and stuff like that. But I would imagine that you'd like this if you really enjoyed UFC. It's certainly fun to me as someone who doesn't really know anything about it. So, but maybe that works in its favor. I don't know. But it's cool, man. It's really, really good fun. Have you ever dabbled in any of the UFC games?
No, but funnily enough, the guy who cuts my hair is a big fan of the UFC games. So much so that saying he plays it a lot online, and he is actually very good at it.
I don't want to ever meet.
He's cutting my hair tomorrow, and I will ask him about UFC 3. I'll ask him if he's got it and see what he thinks.
I bet it will turn out this is the one everybody hates. I bet it's really shit.
Maybe, but you know.
I mean,
what can you do?
I've just talked about the career mode, but there's like, you know, single fights with all the roster of real UFC fighters. Bruce Lee's in there, weirdly. At some point, Dana White or EA or someone, I think it was for the last game, they bought Bruce Lee's likeness for these games. Like Dana White has gone on record of saying he was like the first ever mixed martial artist, which actually makes sense if you know anything about Bruce Lee. So off the back of that, I guess they did a deal with his estate. And yeah, he's a fighter in multiple different weight classes. So you can play him in all the different weight classes, but basically from throughout his life, he basically, you know, he slimmed up and toned down and all kinds of things for different roles. And yeah, the argument was that, yeah, he was the first ever MMA fighter. So that's why they put him in UFC, which is weird, but cool to play as Bruce Lee. He's a very, 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 very quick striker. So understandably. But yeah, all the fighters that I don't recognize are in there, except maybe Conor McGregor and Bruce Lee. They're the only two I really know. For the guys, Ronda Rousey, of course, is no longer in the UFC, though she might be in the game. I haven't checked. Yeah, there's multiplayer. There's the ultimate team equivalent. So the buying trading cards bullshit, right, which I just avoid like the plague whenever I look at EA games, because
EA's casino on the side is still there.
I didn't even look at it. I don't even know how that works in UFC, because you don't have a team, do you? So like, what is that? I doing my due diligence with the review there and not even looking at that. So yeah, I mean, it's all there. It's all there. It's good fun. Hitting people's cool.
In games. In games, kids, in games.
Yeah, no, I like being a bad influence. It's fun. Bulletproof certainly does. Anyway, he's a real piece of work. He's like my UFC fighter equivalent. He's got the beard and the same hair and stuff. He's just 6 foot something and built like a brick shit house, just like me. So let's move on to something a little bit less realistic now. Immortal Redneck. Possibly one of the weirder title video games I've played recently. What do you think that is, just based off of the title, Joel?
So I did watch your video review of this.
Well, you see, I can't ask you that. I was just wondering, what would you conjure up in your head if you heard the words Immortal Redneck? I'm thinking like, Donald Trump's wet dream.
So, what immediately comes to mind when you say Immortal Redneck? I'm almost kind of thinking like, Far Cry 5 kind of comes straight into my head.
Oh, like the Montana set. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So, I can see that. But what it is Serious Sam meets Rogue Legacy. So, see what I'm saying? You follow me? So, it's a roguelite run-based first-person shooter. Which has got the kind of quick mobility and gunplay of, say, Serious Sam, or if you're going back a while, we could go to, I don't know, what was it, Quake, Doom, something like that. That kind of speedy combat with lots of
just
weird
fast,
enemies.
Lots of strafing, shooting, rocket jumping kind of style of first-person shooter, really.
Yeah. So but more in a Serious Sam vein, because it's got the craziest, weirdest collection of enemies you'll ever bloody see. Like, so much weird shit in this game that you shoot. I'm talking like sarcophagus that jump around, like bounce about at you and try and like bounce into you, while also spawning little enemies out of them that come and attack you. I mean, why not? I mean, yeah, because it's in Egypt. So this game's set in Egypt and you're a redneck. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And there's these three pyramids. Now this game makes much sense, but that's kind of what I like about it. This is just a game that's just fun because it's nuts. So there's these 3 different pyramids that you have to clear. You start at the bottom, you work your way up to the top, and as you go, because it's a pyramid, the environment's like that you're in gets smaller, which is quite smart, but also more difficult. And then it's run-based, so like Rogue Legacy, so, you get gold and whatever for going as far as you do, and then you spend it at the shop, and spend it on the upgrade tree to get permanent upgrades for your character for the subsequent run. So each time you come, you need to make a bit more money that next time because, they're tiered. So, as you get better, the things get more expensive. It's balanced really nicely, actually. But the best thing is that it's this, there's this loot system that, like, crazy guns, everything from stun guns to... at one point, I've only ever got it once. I got this Unk, like an Unk. Do you know what I mean by that? Like
it's like an
artifact, a Egyptian artifact.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean.
This Unk I got fired, like, light versions of itself out of itself, and that killed the bad guys. Sure. I also have had crossbows, machine guns, assault rifles, plasma rifles, rocket launchers, everything you'd find in an Egyptian temple or pyramid, really. All the things you usually find lying about in those places. So yeah, very accurate. It's like Assassin's Creed Origins, very accurate. I just had really good fun with it. I mean, you just do the runs, you get better every time, you get your upgrades. There's this great sense of speed to it. You get various artifacts that can give you power-ups as well on your runs. So it's a bit like RNG gods. If they smile upon you, you're gonna do well. You're gonna go far. However, if you just got that stun gun, the tranquilizer gun, and that's all you've got, you're probably gonna struggle. Yeah, bullets are limited. They're not infinite. So you're looking for ammo pickups. You've got health pickups. There's shield pickups. You name it. It's what you'd expect from that kind of shooter. But it's tight. It's well produced. It's well made. It's got a nice sense of humor. The actual redneckness is kind of redundant because there's multiple unlockable characters. So you don't even necessarily play as the eponymous redneck, which is maybe a good thing, maybe a bad thing. I don't know. So yeah, Joel, you watch the video? Did you have any questions?
No, I think I disagree with you. It's just a bonkers first person shooter, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. It's not that it's just got a few bonkers things in it that doesn't make sense. It's embraced that craziness and uses it as fuel for to make it unique and stand out. It looks quite funny.
It is.
You know, the way you describe it makes it sound, entertainingly a good laugh as well. So
no, absolutely, and I think coupling that Serious Sam gameplay with roguelike elements. I mean, sometimes the roguelike stuff nowadays it wears a bit thin. It doesn't always work, but I think making this kind of game run based, it's smart. You know, so the environments are procedurally generated to a degree. There's like a tile set, I guess. So you if you go into an environment with lots of high sort of places to get to, there'll be a way up. There'll be some form of jump or platform that you can make. So it's actually quite well thought. I never had procedurally generated areas like present themselves to me where I couldn't beat them. I never came up against that kind of unbeatable room, which sometimes happens in games like that. And then you'll get to a room and there'll be like a treasure chest, and there's the shop mechanics. So everything you'd expect from that kind of game. Yeah, much like Rogue Legacy. So Rogue Legacy was procedurally generated on a 2D plane to a degree using a tile set. It does the exactly same thing here, but we're in a 3D first person shooter environment. And I very much enjoyed that. I mean, what's not to like? So yeah. So, did you go on?
I was going to say that's almost the perfect way to segue into Xenon Valkyrie, which itself is another rogue like title, basically. With Jesus, how many procedurally generated games have I've played? Not just a lot recently, but we've covered 3 alone in this so far. So unless you've got anything you want to close off on Immortal Redneck, I'll segue off.
Go for it.
So Xenon Valkyrie Plus is a roguelike kind of Spelunky inspired little 2D crawler, basically. It's I've struggled a bit with this one because it sort of boldly proclaims to do so much well, and it doesn't really actually do anything that well at all, to be honest. So the general premise of the game, you can choose from one of these 3 different characters, and then you just drop through these procedurally generated little dungeons, each with a little boss battle at the end. Trying to collect money, you want to open crates as you go, you're trying to get better weapons and stuff, and then being roguelike, it's permadeath, so as soon as you die, you're back at the top level again, and you've got to work your way all the way through it. It's like we were talking a little bit about it before, because I know you've played this, Ben. Sort of the art style, it's gone for that 8-bit, 16-bit pixel art thing, but it's really dull on the color tones. It can actually make it really hard to see where to go. Now, there's this sort of mini map they've got up in the top corner, which actually you'll find yourself referring to a fair few times, because I quite often thought I was stuck. But that would reveal that actually there's this one sort of tile wide little drop tunnel that you can get through to get down to the next sort of floor in the specific thing. And it's each of these characters have abilities. You've got this little fishy guy, he can jump really high. You've got this other kind of female character, she can drop bombs which destroy the environment, but that would be so fun, but the sort of cooldown between being able to drop these bombs is huge. So if you ever want to try and sort of just blast your way through a bit of it takes forever. And sometimes the procedural generation will you can see a chest and it's just in this isolated chamber, and it will take you ages just to blast your way through to try and get to it and stuff. So it's got all these little annoying things that just irk you as you go through it. It doesn't do them very well. And to top it all off, the game doesn't tell you really anything about how to play it. It just sort of starts off with this story, which is just pointless drivel, really, and then throws you into the game. And so you figure a lot of it out as you're going. You try and figure out, like, oh yeah, you know, you can walk through spike traps, for example. So trying to jump them can be a bit of a nuisance at time, and there are golden keys that you need to unlock chests, and it takes you ages to work out how you actually acquire these keys, and then you realize that you can buy them from these shops at specific points in between, and then how to heal, how to get health, and it irked me in many ways. It's I didn't manage to complete the game. Best I managed to do is get to the third world, basically, after several different run throughs. But yeah, audio as well was it was chiptune-y, but annoying chiptune-y, irritating. It wasn't really like rhythmic and cool little riffs. It was kind of like just winding you up audio. What did you think? Come on.
I haven't played it as much as you, because I'm glad I wasn't reviewing it, because I bounced off pretty hard. And basically, the one word I'd use to describe pretty much everything about this game is muddy. Like, the story is pretty nondescript and muddy. The sound, like you said, is nondescript, kind of boring, and the visuals are it's just another one of those games that looks like that. But the problem with this one is that it's such a mess, the pixel art, that everything gets lost amongst itself. I'm playing on like maybe playing on a big screen like I was, on a 4K TV. Maybe it's detrimental to it. I don't know. Maybe that's part of the problem, because it just came across as muddy and messy and hard to follow. And like you said, the way the controls are presented to you, what the gameplay, like, none of it's really explained. It's all just sort of left for you to work out. But I guess what's the excuse there? Oh, it's a roguelite, so work it out, mate. That's the genre, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, very much so. And to be honest, it's all you sort of play it and you think, yeah, this game's been inspired by Spelunky, but rather than being inspired by another great game to go and do, take that recipe, add something to it, make it better, it's literally just a worse version. If you want to play a title, a sort of roguelike 2D, traditionally kind of crawler, play Spelunky. It's probably so I haven't actually put a review up on the site actually of this yet. I'm still working on it. I'm trying to get into the world of video reviewing, and so I'm easing my way into it, and so I'm trying to do some new stuff. So it's taken me a little bit of a while. I'm trying to use some new software, so hopefully that will be up on the site in the next few days.
I obviously 5 stars. Yeah, I mean,
my video review should be
okay.
The game.
Okay. I want to end on my favorite game of the last few weeks. So I guess I'm going to talk about Metal Gear Survive now. Oh, Joel. I mean, it's difficult to sum up the will to talk about this. I got a code for this quite late. Everybody else has already been banging on about how depressingly sort of nondescript and boring this game is, and I added to that chorus in my review. So Metal Gear Survive is the darkest timeline. It's the timeline where Konami went, you know what, we can do Metal Gear without Hideo Kojima, and it's like, no, you can't really, can you? It has this bonkers, slow, heavy sort of like just info dump of a start to the game, this setup of wormholes and alternative dimensions and new secret organizations that are investigating crystal-headed zombie outbreaks, and now we're going to go to the place they've come from called Dite, and let's send you through with nothing, and you're going to have to survive, and you're going to have to stop the crystal zombie people because they're bad, aren't they? And it's just garbage. And I mean, it's like they went, oh, well, Metal Gear is all about weird, strange stories and characters. That's what people want. The only problem is you're lacking a certain auteur that kind of brought his own twisted weirdness to Metal Gear, and that's what gave it its voice and what made it what it was, and it wasn't just a sort of cookie cutter stealth action game. That's what sets it apart, you know, that's what makes it special. And then you've just tried to sort of imitate that with your own thing, and it's crap and it's boring. And it's just this very drab world that you have. It's basically an inventory management game. You know, you spend a lot of time looking at pretty poorly designed inventory screens and menus, and watching your bar deplete, and just desperately trying to find a drink of clean water so you don't die every 5 seconds. And the bars go down so quick on your health and your thirst. It's just stupid. It's just poorly bloody balanced, and it so it means you never feel like you have the freedom to explore and actually comfortably go on a mission, because, you know, I'm always running around trying to find clean water, and you don't get the ability to make clean water until you get quite far into the game. So you're finding this dirty water that you're like literally rolling the dice on every time you drink, because if you get the bad batch, you're going to be puking up every sort of few seconds or half a minute, usually in the middle of combat, which means you're fucked. And it's just annoying. So yeah, predominantly what you do in this game is you're scavenging, and that's fine, I guess. And then there's base management stuff, and that's fine. But everything's hampered with these fucking constantly forever depleting meters. I reckon if they'd said to me when I got this code for review, hey, here's a cheat code, it will turn off the bars, I would have had so much more fucking fun, Joel. That's like literally all I was waiting for, like an ability to turn those off, and you never get it. It's just a trudge. It's just a trudge through sort of a pretty mediocre survival sim in this poorly conceived Metal Gear wrapper. And for God's sake, Konami, don't bother with anything else in that universe. It's just not worth it. It really isn't. And then there's the shitty, I haven't even talked about the shitty microtransaction support. How there's just, it's not like, you know how when you get microtransaction, it's just a big option on the front menu, and it's like, here, you buy your things, this is the things. It's not like that. You buy currency, and then in the in-game sort of like inventory menus and the crafting menus, there'll be a thing that doesn't work unless you have real money currency to do it, or you won't be able to buy a thing without the real money currency and stuff like that. And it's just gross. And it should have been a free-to-play game. If it had been a free-to-play game, it would have got so much better, like, you know, reception. It would have been so much better goodwill from the fans and stuff like that. But I mean, they're charging less, but it's not cheap enough. Do you know? Have you got any questions? Because it's like I don't want to just. I'm just adding to the chorus. I'm just adding to the
immediate thing. Was that I heard about this game that really irked me the most was literally that there is a fucking microtransaction to buy an additional save slot. Go fuck yourselves. Literally, that is that. Yeah, screw this game. Literally, any game that does that is. And you're right. It's not a free. Maybe if it was free to play,
yeah,
there's some angle of forgivability, but that is just crazy.
To be honest, I never really. I mean, what that is it's not so much. It's like each character you create is a perpetual thing, you know. So you don't have like multiple saves. It just auto saves for you, right? So what that is another character slot rather than another save slot. And I never felt the need to create another character because I was having so little fun with the one I already had. So it was just like, well, why would I want to do another one? But for the hardcore, it's almost like it's penalizing the people that really enjoy it.
Yeah,
you know, that really get into it. It's more like Konami went, ha 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 ha, they'll pay, won't they? Yes. Also, the other slightly baffling thing is, so this is a survival game, base management, and all that shit. You know, the sort of like along the lines of what we're kind of hoping from State of Decay 2 in a way. There's co-op in this, but not really. It's its own mode, and it's just sort of horde survival mode. So it's just like playing Gears of War horde mode or Firefight in Halo, but with a few base building elements. But it's not the main thing. It's not the main campaign. It's just like, well, why do that? That's like, surely the whole fun would be, get a friend in there. Oh, he can be looking for water and hunting. Well, I go and get the thing to progress the story, because that way we can split our resources, and that way, you know, I won't fuck the time. Like, no, you're just going to be fucked all the time. It's so weird. There's elements to it I like. I quite like the melee combat. I think it's stupid beyond belief, right? So you do these things where you can like build just a fence magically in front of you, like when you're out and about. So first of all, you have to go to your base. This is just part of the weird obfuscated system. So you're in your base and you craft these fence pieces that you then put in your inventory. And then when you're out and about, like if you get a bunch of zombies coming at you, you can use your wormhole technology to make the fence piece appear in front of you. So when all the zombies just mindlessly walk at you with their unbelievably bad AI, they all just get stuck on the fence. You stand behind this. This is like a 3-meter square piece of fencing in the middle of the desert, right? And they're all on one side and you're on the other. And then you're just sticking them in the head with your pole like this through the fence. Just jab, jab, jab. And they all fall down. And it's just like, that's sort of fun in a really ridiculously stupid way. But like, it doesn't make a jot of sense. Any of it, like, what? But I mean, it's like, I almost forgive that because a lot of Metal Gear doesn't make any sense. So fair enough. It has sort of an internal logic. But even this is stretching that to like breaking point. Like the wormhole thing. Because I remember in Metal Gear 5, there's the final upgrade to your fulcrum system. Is you can like the very, very, you have to play a lot of the game. I never got this far, but you can upgrade it. So instead of getting picked up like by the plane with the balloons, that whatever you've done on the fulcrum will just disappear into a wormhole. And that's like one little throwaway gag has become the entire crux of the story of this game. It's very strange.
So, you're going to have to help me out a little bit here. So I haven't really... so I've played Metal Gear Solid, and Metal Gear Solid was a stealth action title with a heavy...
Is that the first
narrative? Yeah, that was
PlayStation game?
Yeah, it was the original PSX game. Yeah. That was brilliant. And I think Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear 2, Sons of Liberty, and they all kind of they were stealth action games. Did the series diverge a bit before this game, or is this the first game that isn't stealth action?
So Metal Gear Solid 5, the last Hideo Kojima joint on the Xbox One and PS4, is an open world game. So it's where this engine that's used in this game was developed. The Fox engine was developed for that. And it's an open world stealth action game. So in that, you should play that. It's a very, 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 very good open world game. And I don't have like a crazy love of all the PlayStation games, of the original Metal Gear. I've played all of them. I don't think I've ever completed any of them. However, I have read about and watched lots of supercuts of the story and stuff like that over the years and stuff. So I know enough about it. But yeah, number 5 was excellent because he somehow made it work in an open world setting. Like, he gives you so much freedom as to how you would encounter enemies in that open world. From stealth to straight up aggression. And then there's the whole fulcrum mechanic. I guess if you've never played it, you don't even know what I'm talking about. There's this thing where you can like knock out bad guys and they do this with resources and animals and whatever. And then you like strap a balloon to them and they float up in the air and then they get picked up by a plane and taken back to your base. And it's bonkers, but awesome. But there's a final upgrade to that gives that like wormhole tech. So it like happens instantly. And then it's quicker transition back to the base and stuff like that. But that's what the whole conceit of this game is based on, this kind of throwaway final upgrade joke. That's basically a non-thing, but they somehow created an entire storyline and universe out of that. Which is fine because, you know, in a way, because Metal Gear is completely bullshit mental. But it's just sort of everything else about it. The skeeziness of Konami, the way that the game is balanced. You know, it's just not enjoyable. So, yeah, 2 out of 5 from me on that one. Okay. So, the best game I have played in a while is a really small game in many ways, right? It's made by a developer called 10 Tons Limited, which I came across and adore for Crimson Land. Have you ever played Crimson Land, Joel?
No, I've not.
So Crimson Land is on pretty much everything now, I think. So yeah, it's on PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and Switch. And it's this very, very, very simplistic, top-down, twin-stick shooter, which you're basically the environment's a complete open field, and you just get bigger and better weapons constantly as you progress through the levels. And it just spawns hundreds of enemies around you all the time, and you're just fighting enemies, and it's all like monsters, and it's a bit like a Doom aesthetic. You're like a marine. Very simple, gory, super fun, great controls. loads of replayability. Now, what they have now put out, it's coming out next week on the Xbox and PS4. I think on the PS4 as well. I might be wrong. But it's been out on PC for a while. Is a game called Tesla versus Lovecraft. Now, the conceit of this is you play as Nikolai Tesla, and you're given like a speech, and Lovecraft shows up, and he's like, "You got to stop this shit, otherwise I'm going to mess you up." And then he basically makes all the kind of Cthulhu monsters real. And your job is now, with series of upgrades and better guns and stuff, to fight through various levels, which have now got proper environmental design. And there are actually a lot of unique environments with like destructible environments as well, which is a big step up, obviously, from Crimson Land. They've clearly come a long way at 10 tons. And you just use twin stick controls to destroy huge amounts of monsters, like thousands of monsters through the course of this game. And I can't stop playing it. I love it. It's so good. It's got such a great combat loop. It's got so many cool upgrades. And you get a mech, Joel. So in each level, if you pick up 6 mech parts, you can like bring down, it's almost like Titanfall. Like, you know, you bring down your mech and you get in your mech, and then you just lay waste with your big twin miniguns to even more monsters. And, you know, there's strategic use of the mech you can think about when you call it down. And there's loads of different perks and upgrades that you unlock as you progress through the game. So you're always making Tesla even better. There's a survival mode, which is just a high-scored leaderboard challenge. I'm in the top 10 of the world right now, probably because nobody else is playing it yet. But that's fine. I'm taking that.
Don't put yourself down, but don't put yourself down. Take that.
There's only 15 people playing it, but I'm in the top 10. Yeah, I've just really, really, really enjoyed this game. It's tight, it's fun. It doesn't get sort of stuck behind pointless narrative. It just gives you what you want, which is bloody, gory, exploding monsters. Lots of nice variety of the monsters. The whole game looks great, crisp, runs really quick, loads really fast into each level and environment. I've just had a really good blast. I've had a real blast with this. Spoiler, I'm going to give it 5 stars. I absolutely love this game. Yes.
I watched the trailer for it. It does look cool. It's basically pitched as science versus fantasy. And yeah, it looked twin sticksy action, loads of stuff happening, lots of constant action. Looked just generally bonkers and stuff. Yeah, looked good fun. So
one of the things,
try that out.
One of your core abilities as Tesla is you have a teleport ability.
Yeah, I saw that you can. The mech can sort of skip around a teleport. So I assume when you get in a bit of a hairy situation, you can just
not just in the mech. The mech's interesting because it does damage when it goes through enemies. But when you're out of the mech, you just skip to a nearby location. You have 3 charges to teleport, but there's perks and stuff to do things like increase the speed of your teleport charge and also do damage through your teleport as well. So that's really, really helpful for like kiting the enemies and managing the battlefield, because yeah, things get really, really hectic. You will just get surrounded. And you have to think about how to deal with environments, especially because the big difference here with Crimson Land is that Crimson Land was literally just a big open field. So in this, they're all different environments like city streets, caves, you know, so you can get bottlenecked in, you can get trapped. So the first thing you usually do when you first jump into a new environment is quickly get around it as quickly as possible so you understand the layout. And then you can start doing things like, you know, bottlenecking the enemies so that you can like hit them with a lot of shotgun blasts. You know, you've got different power-ups and you've got secondary weapon attacks and all kinds of stuff that it's presented in a way in which, you know, it's not drip fed because you feel like you're always getting something new. You're always getting something that's going to help you because every level is an increasing challenge. And it's balanced really well. And it's just infinite fun. Like, it's just got so much replayability. It's fabulous. Love it. So yeah, that's my 5-star for the week. I think that one. Yeah, maybe a new rule. We can only do 1 5-star every month. Anything you wanted to finish up on, Joel?
The other thing I've already wanted to talk about was Farpoint, which is a PSVR title. Now, this is special because you might remember this is the game that's designed to use the elusive PlayStation aim controller, which you cannot buy as a separate accessory. And Farpoint, the game, doesn't really work without it. So when I bought my PSVR, Farpoint, the game, was bundled with it for free, but obviously it's the version of the game that doesn't include the aim controller, which made the game essentially freaking useless to play. Trying to play it at the DualShock is it's possible, but it's just not how the game's meant to be played or enjoyed. But anyway, this week I picked up an aim controller with a I bought it's been rebundled with another game called Bravo Team, which is being universally slated, which, to be honest, I might get round to playing, but I'm not that in that much of a hurry after seeing the reviews. But anyway, I've got the aim controller, and so I went back and played through Farpoint with it, and it's quite cool. I quite enjoyed the experience. It's certainly tense at times. Aiming's really one of the really good things is that in some of you get when you want to look down the holographic sight of your gun, you actually raise the aim controller up, and you're inside the headset, you're closing one of your eyes so you can see your holographic sight and line the enemies up and stuff. And it's pretty cool and interesting little feature. Yeah, the game, I played it I did like a 2.5 hour stint, by which time motion sickness got the better of me, so I had to kind of stop at the end of it. But also, freaking my knee hurts from standing up for 2.5 hours just playing this game. It's pretty nuts. So I'm looking forward to going back and continuing with it and stuff. But yeah, it's genuinely quite good. I do quite like it. Now, obviously, it's a bit of a pain. You have to buy the game, an aim controller, a PSVR to get the best out of all of this stuff. But it's a good fun experience. I know Richard has played it and has the aim controller, so it'd be cool to compare notes now that I've got the same experience.
You just make me jealous. I do want a PSVR. I do, but I want to get that. I've talked to you. I was trying to find a pro cheap, wasn't I? So I get
like I said, the annoying thing about the PSVR, and obviously when we were chatting about it, is it's not just you can get the headset and some games for 300 quid. I think it is the general price that it's floating around for. But that doesn't actually really get you what you need. You need to buy the Move controllers. Some of the games now use the aim controller, so you'll have to buy this. So that's the aim controller game bundles about 50 quid. The Move controllers seem to be like 60 quid as well for a pair of them. So, it really pushes up the cost of getting everything you need to play all the games, which is a bit of a ball ache with it, really. They need to get a bit better on that. I'm surprised that they don't actually bundle the Move controllers. If you had the Move controllers with the headset, that would give you enough to play like 85 to 90% of the games that are released for it, which would be fine. But yeah, it does make a big difference.
Yeah, nickel and diming. I mean, you can't be too hard on them, I guess, because Nintendo are just as bad with their needing all the different types of accessories that you need with the Switch and stuff, aren't they? So it's like, they all do it. I nearly bought a fucking Sea of Thieves controller for Xbox.
Jesus, yeah, that's just skins and stuff. The only thing I will get bad at them about, I can't believe they cannot buy the aim controller as a separate accessory. I think that's a big. I can't believe it. I don't understand why.
Surely that's not worth it if it only works with 2 games.
I think it works with. I think there are about 4 games now that use it. I know that Doom VFR can use it. Bravo Team and Farpoint definitely are games that use it, and I think there is another title that I can't immediately think of the name of that does use it. It's like the fact that you can actually buy Farpoint separately, if you know what I mean, without the controller. It's why don't you sell the controller separately as well? And the funny thing is, I think they do in the US. They just don't do it in the UK or the EU.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah, it's like, come on, Sony, sort it out. So I'll grate on them for that, but otherwise,
how much did you pay for your lump of inert plastic?
Well, you say it's a lump of inert plastic. It's not quite, because it's actually it's like a Move controller. It's got both joysticks in it. It is a full controller. You could probably play other games with it. It's a little bit more. It's got a battery built in to charge. Okay.
I thought you just put the Move controllers.
No. It's not like a plastic casing. This is a full controller. So there is a bit more to it than that, and it's in some senses it is quite cool, and you can see it definitely enhances some first person shooter games.
I missed the days where light guns look like guns, but that's just me.
No, I used to love playing Point Blank in the arcade. One of my favorite light gun titles.
So on that nostalgia point. I think will draw us to the end of episode 42 of Romancing the Stone. Episode 42 of Romancing the Stone. It's actually our new slash fiction series that we're going to do, Joel. Joel, what do you think? We're up to 42. It's going well.
Romancing. I'm just trying to think of what we could do on this week's episode of Romancing the Stone.
Do you remember the film Romancing the Stone?
No.
Where I was inspired for the title. You don't remember Romancing the Stone?
No.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
Look it up. It's on 1984.
That's why I do not remember Romancing the Stone, because I was
Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner. Come on.
When was it actually released? Let's have a look.
Like 84.
30th of March. I was 6 months old.
Well, I mean, I was about the same, but I remember seeing this film loads. I think it must have always been on TV when I was growing up, because I remember seeing this loads. It was kind of like a Indiana Jones, but for adults thing. It was like comedy swashbuckly thing with Michael Douglas looking all...
Now I'm looking at the film poster. She's a girl from the big city. He's a reckless soldier of fortune. For a fabulous treasure, they share an adventure no one could imagine or survive. Catchy. Totally befitting.
Perfect 80s.
Am I him and you her, or is it the other way around?
I think Kathleen Turner's more attractive than Michael Douglas there, so I'll take that. Yeah,
I'm the city girl, am I? Oh no, you don't. You're the city girl. I'm the reckless soldier of fortune. With a busted knee for playing VR for too long.
Whenever I hear the word soldier of fortune, I just remember the video game. Firing grenades over people to blow up their legs and dismemberment. Do you remember that had active dismemberment? Do you remember that?
I don't think I've ever played Soldier of Fortune. I know of the game.
Active. You could literally cut people's limbs off. It was glorious.
Was it as satisfying as Dead Space's active dismemberment? I remember that being incredible.
It was pretty satisfying, especially for its time. I mean, we should talk about that a little bit. I mean, maybe at the end here, just to say, there might not be any more active dismemberment in video games now that Donald Trump's got involved. And you've got to remember, video games are the source of all school shootings. That's why there are 12 a week here in the UK.
They're just going to try and sidestep the narrative into trying to pitch the blame on something.
What? No,
happens every time.
What are you talking? No. I am shocked at such an act. Donald Trump would never do that. He's making America great again. They're going to become a puritanical nightmare state. It's going to be amazing.
The first time it happened and children died, that was the point that America had already accepted that it would take more than the lives of children to
change anything,
to instigate a reform of gun control, basically.
To change anything.
There isn't really a story here. It's just theatre. They should have fixed it 15 years. When did Columbine happen? I can't remember how long ago that was, but the fact they never fixed it then just meant that they could stomach it, and that's that.
Yep, you're right. As a society and as a culture, yeah, absolutely. They were just like, whatever, worth it. I think the best thing to come out of it is the kids and how they're like talking of like fucking striking, going to school and stuff. Amazing.
You have made me think of sorry, I was just reading through my Edge magazine earlier. A topic. So there is a VR training simulator that is for school shootings, and so and it can be used by many different people. So for teachers, they're trying to use let teachers play it so they can in these VR environments like react, sort of rushing to get children to the rooms and stuff. You can play as the shooter apparently, so you can go through and shoot kids. You can also play as law enforcement to try and react to it and things. So it's this VR training simulator for dealing with this. And yeah, it's made by some company. It's not a game that you can buy. It's obviously something that they make this specialist kind of like Formula One teams have their specialist simulators, for example. I think it's sort of up in that level of development and stuff. But yeah.
So let me paint you a picture.
This is how they're going to deal with it.
Let me paint you a picture. So it's a school trip, and they're off to Intrasoft, the makers of school shooting VR. And they get to Intrasoft, and it's like, well, the teacher gives it a go, and right, so there's my exits, and I get it now, and then Simon gives it a go, and he's like class valedictorian. He's like, no, I know where to usher the kids out and stuff, and how to orderly move them out. And then they look over at Michael, and he's wearing his trench coat today and his Doom t-shirt, and he's got that faraway look in his eye, and they go, Yeah, sorry, Michael. We haven't got time for you today. We're gonna just we're gonna get back on the bus. Time to go home. Sorry, Mike. Sorry. And he just grunts and goes home and polishes his AK, ready for the day. So I mean, that's just weird, Joel. That exists. I don't know how I feel about that. And it's sad that Michael will never get to experience it unless he really does get that AR-15 for Christmas, which in America he might well do. So there you go. It's just disgusting. Like, for God's sake, guys, less guns is good. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't believe it's not just that you can. It's not just that you can go and buy a gun. It's like, yeah, you can go out and buy a handgun or something like that. You can go out and buy military grade assault rifles and stuff. Now, when and most people are like, I get, is this like hunting? When you go out to fight a bear, is it, you know, why you won't have a kind of a single shot bolt action rifle or something?
No, it's to protect yourself.
Do you need a sort of fully automatic 50 round magazine P90 to bring a bear down?
When the crack addict army comes to your house to rape your wife, you need the AR-10 to protect your family, Joel. I mean, that's or there's the rioting, dissatisfied populations. Like, maybe next time the Mexicans rise up in Texas and try to overthrow, you know, a city, then you need your AR-10. Jesus, Joel. It's all, you know, you can't trust the police. They're all in with Obama's lot. I mean, he's not the president anymore, but you can't trust them. Like, who's gonna, the army? What good are they? They're all off fighting wars in other countries. You need your AR-10s, man. And your Spaz 12 military grade shotguns, you know, so you can lay down as much auto-destructive fire as possible. How else will you protect hearth and home? Jesus, Joel. As a family man, I thought you would know this. God. And on that strange, dark, twisted, weird note, I think we'll end this episode. Check us out at Bxb'S on Twitter. You can find me at DIYE at Twitter. You can find
Joel Richard, is now on Twitter. Oh no, you're gonna. How can you? Why would you? No, you can't mention Richard. He's not here. You can't promote him. Surely.
I was going to say you can find Richard at GermanVideoGameSite.de on Twitter. Yeah, lots of tweets. And Joel, where can they find you at Twitter?
I'm at Nuclear Red Eye.
Nuclear Red Eye. Have you had any followers yet, Joel?
Richard followed me.
Richard followed you. Did I follow you?
Possibly. I don't know. I don't actually ever tweet anything.
Cool. Worth following Joel for all those scintillating no tweets. If you're a member of Twitter and you just don't like reading tweets, follow Joel because he doesn't tweet. It's easier that way. BXB Games on Facebook, BXB Games on YouTube, and all the other places. By all means, check us out on iTunes, give us a rating and review. And look, drop us a line if you want to cover video games. We're always looking for new people that want to talk about shit on the podcast with us and write stuff and do videos and streams and whatnot. So if you're interested in getting the odd random, probably awful video game, to play and to talk about, then drop me a line on one of those many channels. And I think that brings us to the end of episode 42. We'll be back with 43. Well, I'm trying to think. We'll see if Thieves be out by then. Probably.
Yeah, we're looking towards the end of March.
Yeah, possibly even Far Cry as well then in that case. So lots of big old games to be talking about soon. Exciting times. And then it'll be E3 before you even know it. Trust me, that always comes up quicker than you realize. So until then, I will say goodbye.
Bye.